Hello, English learners. Welcome back to Daily English Talks. I'm Mia, and I'm so glad to be your guide today as we dive into another powerful lesson that will help you speak English more naturally and confidently. In today's video, we're going to explore 80 common English phrases that you can start using in your daily conversations right away. These phrases are used by native speakers all the time in everyday life. And once you learn them, you'll sound more fluent and be able to communicate more effectively. Whether you're at work, chatting with friends, or just going about your daily routine, these expressions will help you feel more comfortable and natural when speaking English. Let's begin with some common greetings and expressions we use when starting a conversation. Imagine you're meeting someone for the first time or running into a friend. You might say, "Hey, how's it going?" or "What's up?" These casual phrases are friendly and relaxed. And they're perfect for informal situations. Instead of always saying, "Hello, how are you?" try mixing it up with these more natural alternatives. If someone asks you, "What's up?" you can respond with, "Not much, just taking it easy," or "Just the usual." These replies show that you're familiar with conversational English and know how to keep things flowing. Now let's look at how to continue a conversation. After the greeting, you might ask, "How have you been?" or "What have you been up to lately?" These questions are great for reconnecting with someone you haven't seen in a while. If someone asks you this, you could say, "I've been keeping busy with work," or "just spending time with family." These types of responses help keep the conversation going and allow you to share a little about your life. Remember, the more you practice these phrases, the more comfortable you'll feel using them in real conversations. Let's move on to phrases used when making small talk. Small talk is an important skill in English, and it helps you connect with people. When making small talk, you might say things like, "Lovely weather today, isn't it?" or "Did you catch the game last night?" These are great ways to start a casual conversation. You don't need to talk about anything deep or personal, just simple topics to break the ice. When someone brings up the weather, for example, you could respond with, "Yeah, it's been really nice lately." Or, "I hope it stays like this for the weekend." These simple exchanges help build a friendly connection. Now let's practice with a little exercise. Imagine you're walking into a coffee shop and you see a coworker. How would you start a conversation? Try saying, "Hey there, fancy seeing you here. How's your day going?" Now, think about how your coworker might respond. Maybe they say, "Oh, hey, my day's been good, just grabbing a quick coffee. How about you?" These simple exchanges help you get comfortable with casual conversation. Practice speaking out loud and imagine yourself in the situation. The more you visualize and say the words, the more natural they'll feel. Another common situation is when you need to agree or show interest in a conversation. You can say, "That makes sense," or "I know what you mean." These phrases show that you're listening and engaged. If someone shares a story with you, you could say, "Wow, that's interesting," or "No way, really." These expressions show emotion and keep the conversation lively. It's important to respond naturally, rather than just nodding or saying "okay" every time. Let's practice again. If someone says, "I had to wait in line for an hour at the bank," you could respond with, "Seriously? That's so annoying," or "I hate when that happens." These responses show empathy and make the conversation feel real. Let's talk about asking for clarification or repeating something. If you didn't hear what someone said, you can ask, "Could you say that again?" or I'm sorry, what was that? These are polite ways to ask someone to repeat themselves. You can also say, I didn't catch that. Can you repeat it? Or, what do you mean by that? These phrases help you keep up with the conversation even when you miss something. Practice these out loud. Try saying, sorry, I missed that. What did you say about the meeting? This will help you get more confident in situations where you don't understand everything right away. Sometimes, you need to express your opinion. You can say, in my opinion, or I think that. For example, I think that movie was really well done. Or, in my opinion, it's better to work in a team. These phrases help you express yourself clearly and respectfully. If you disagree with someone, you can say, I see your point, but I think, or that's true, but I feel. These softening phrases help you disagree politely without sounding rude. Let's practice. Imagine someone says, I think online classes are better than in-person ones. You could respond, that's a good point, but I prefer being in a classroom where I can interact face-to-face. This kind of reply keeps the conversation respectful and open. You'll also find yourself in situations where you want to offer help or ask for it. You can say, can I give you a hand? Or, do you need any help with that? These are friendly ways to offer assistance. If you need help, you can say, could you help me out? Or, would you mind giving me a hand? Let's practice. Imagine you're carrying a heavy box, and someone says, that looks heavy. Do you want a hand? You could respond with, that would be great, thanks. Or, yes, please, I'd appreciate that. These kinds of exchanges help you interact in a helpful and polite way in everyday situations. Sometimes we need to express emotions like surprise, happiness, or disappointment. Phrases like, that's amazing, or I'm so happy for you, are great for showing positive emotions. When you're surprised, you can say, are you serious? Or, that's unbelievable. If you're disappointed, you might say, that's too bad, or I'm sorry to hear that. Practice saying these with the right emotion in your voice. Imagine a friend tells you they got a promotion. You could say, that's fantastic news. Congratulations. Or if someone says their vacation was canceled, you could respond, oh no, that sucks. I was really looking forward to hearing all about it. These responses make your conversations more expressive and human. Now let's go over some casual ways to say goodbye. Instead of always saying goodbye, you can say, see you later, catch you later, or take care. These are friendly and informal ways to end a conversation. You can also say, talk to you soon, or have a good one. Practice these phrases by imagining the end of a phone call or a chat with a friend. Say, all right, I've got to go now. Talk to you later. Or, it was great catching up. See you around. These expressions help you sound natural when leaving a conversation. Another useful set of phrases involves making suggestions or giving advice. In everyday conversations, people often talk about what others should do or could try. To do this politely, you can use phrases like, why don't you, or maybe you could. For example, if a friend is feeling stressed, you might say, why don't you take a break and go for a walk? Or maybe you could talk to your manager about it. These suggestions are soft and friendly, making the conversation more supportive. Another way to suggest something is by saying, have you thought about, as in, have you thought about joining a gym? These expressions help you offer advice in a kind and helpful way. Let's practice. Imagine a friend tells you they can't sleep at night. You could respond, maybe you could try turning off your phone an hour before bed, or why don't you read a book before going to sleep? Let's move on to phrases used when expressing preferences or making choices. This often comes up when people talk about food, entertainment, or travel. You might say, I'd rather have tea than coffee, or I prefer staying in to going out. These are common ways to show what you like or don't like. When you're discussing options with someone, you could say, I'm more into movies than books, or I'm not really a fan of horror films. These phrases help you express your personal tastes naturally. Here's a quick practice example. Imagine someone asks, do you want to go out for dinner or order in? You could reply, I'd prefer to stay in and order something. I'm feeling a bit tired tonight. Sometimes in conversation, we need to make excuses or explain why we can't do something. These phrases are helpful for politely saying no or avoiding a situation. You might say, I'd love to, but I have other plans. Or, I'm really sorry, but I can't make it. These are polite ways to decline an invitation or request. You can also say, I'm afraid I won't be able to come, or it's just not a good time for me right now. Let's say someone invites you to a party and you can't attend. You might say, thanks for the invite. I'd love to come, but I already have something scheduled. This helps you say no without sounding rude. Practice saying a few polite excuses out loud, and imagine you're turning someone down with kindness. Another helpful category includes phrases used when expressing thanks and appreciation. Saying thank you in different ways helps you sound more natural. Instead of always saying thank you, you can try thanks a lot, I really appreciate it, or that means a lot to me. When someone does something nice for you, try saying, I can't thank you enough, or thanks a ton. These phrases show that you're truly grateful. If someone thanks you, you can respond with, you're welcome, no problem. Anytime, or glad to help. Let's practice. Imagine someone says, thanks for helping me move my furniture. You could reply, no problem at all. I'm happy I could help. Practicing these phrases will make you more confident in showing gratitude. Let's now look at phrases used in shopping or ordering food. If you're at a store, you might say, how much is this? Or, do you have this in a different size? When you're ready to buy something, you could say, I'll take this one, or, can I pay by card? In a restaurant or cafe, you can say, I'd like a coffee, please, or, can I see the menu? These phrases are useful every day. Let's practice a scene. Imagine you walk into a cafe and the server asks what you'd like. You can say, hi, I'd like a cappuccino and a croissant, please. When you're done, you might say, could I get the bill? Or, can I pay now? Practicing these short interactions helps you feel more relaxed in real situations. Now let's talk about making plans. This often involves phrases like, are you free this weekend? Or, do you want to hang out sometime? If you're inviting someone, you could say, would you like to come over for dinner? Or, let's grab lunch sometime. These phrases help you set up a meeting or activity. When accepting an invitation, you can say, sounds good, I'd love to, or that works for me. If you're unsure, you can say, let me check my schedule, or I'll get back to you on that. Let's try a short exercise. Imagine someone says, do you want to see a movie on Saturday? You could respond with, that sounds great. What time were you thinking? Practicing these exchanges will help you arrange plans smoothly in English. Another area where conversational English comes in handy is during work or professional settings. You might hear or use phrases like, let's touch base next week. Meaning, let's follow up or check in. Or, I'll keep you posted, which means you'll update someone with new information. If you need someone to do something, you might say, can you take care of this? Or, let me know if you need anything. In meetings, people often say, let's get started, or shall we begin? If you want to join a conversation, you can say, can I add something? Or, I'd like to share my thoughts. Practicing these phrases out loud will help you become more confident in workplace communication. Let's look at phrases that help you handle disagreements or conflict politely. Sometimes we have different opinions, and that's okay. To disagree respectfully, you can say, I'm not sure I agree, or I see what you're saying, but these show that you're listening but have a different view. You can also say, that's one way to look at it, but I think, or you might be right, but here's how I see it. These phrases help keep the conversation calm and respectful. Here's a practice scenario. Imagine someone says, I think everyone should work from home permanently. You might reply, that's an interesting point. I think a mix of office and homework might be better for productivity. Practicing these kinds of responses helps you speak confidently even when you don't agree. Sometimes you'll need to confirm or clarify information. For this, you can say, so just to confirm, or let me make sure I understood you correctly. These are helpful when you're trying to be precise or avoid misunderstandings. For example, just to confirm, the meeting is at 10 a.m., right? Or, let me make sure I got that you want me to email the report by Friday. These phrases are often used in professional situations, but can also be useful in everyday conversations. Practice by thinking of a situation where you're confirming an appointment or checking someone's request. Another helpful phrase is, could you clarify that for me? It works well when someone's explanation isn't clear. It shows you're interested and paying attention. For example, I didn't quite get that. Could you clarify it a bit? This is both polite and effective. Likewise, when you want to check if you understood correctly, you can say, so what you mean is, followed by your interpretation. This keeps communication smooth and ensures everyone is on the same page. These phrases are essential, especially in group discussions, work meetings, or when you're learning something new. Practice them by imagining you are in a meeting and need to confirm what was just said. Say, so, just to confirm, we are meeting at 2 p.m. in the main conference room, right? The more you use them, the more natural they will feel. Let's continue exploring more phrases that are useful in daily conversations. One important situation we often face is when we want to offer help or support to someone. You might hear phrases like, do you need a hand? Or, can I help you with that? These are polite and friendly ways to show someone that you're available to assist. Another great phrase is, let me know if you need anything. This is often used when someone is going through a tough time, or when you want to show kindness without being too forceful. For example, if a friend is sick, you might say, I hope you feel better soon. Let me know if you need anything. These little phrases show care and build stronger connections in your conversations. Another everyday context involves asking for help or requesting something. In English, we often soften requests to sound more polite. Instead of saying, give me that, it's better to say, could you pass me that, please? Or, would you mind helping me with this? These small changes make your tone sound much more respectful and kind. For instance, if you need directions, you can say, "Excuse me, could you tell me how to get to the nearest bank?" Or, "Would you mind showing me where the post office is?" These polite requests make it easier to ask for things and get a better response. Now let's talk about how to respond when someone is having a hard time. These supportive phrases are great in personal relationships. If a friend tells you they're feeling sad or stressed, you can say, "I'm here for you," or "That sounds really tough." Another kind phrase is, "I'm so sorry you're going through this." It's important to show empathy and let the other person know that you care. For example, if someone tells you they lost their job, you might respond, "I'm really sorry to hear that. If there's anything I can do, please let me know." Practicing these phrases helps you feel more confident when offering emotional support to friends and family. Let's also learn how to agree with someone in a conversation. It's helpful to have more ways than just saying, "I agree." You can say, "That's true," "Exactly," or "You're absolutely right." If you really agree with someone's opinion, you might say, "I couldn't agree more," or "That's a good point." These expressions help you sound more fluent and engaged in conversations. For instance, if someone says, "Learning English takes time and practice," you could say, "You're absolutely right." It's all about consistency. These types of exchanges keep the conversation natural and flowing. Another key topic is how to express surprise or excitement. When something unexpected happens, or when you're really happy about something, English offers fun expressions. You can say, "No way," or "That's amazing." If someone tells you good news, you might respond, "I'm so happy for you," or "That's fantastic." These reactions help show emotion and make conversations more lively. Practice by imagining someone says, "I just got promoted at work." You could say, "Wow, that's awesome. Congratulations." These phrases add energy and warmth to your communication. Let's talk about phrases used when saying goodbye. There are so many more options than just goodbye. You can say, "See you later," "Take care," "Talk to you soon," or "Catch you later." These sound friendly and casual, which makes your conversation feel natural. In more formal settings, you might say, "It was nice talking to you," or "Have a great day." These little phrases leave a good impression and make endings smoother. You can practice by imagining you're leaving a cafe after chatting with a friend. You might say, "Take care. Let's catch up again soon." When making introductions, it's helpful to use polite and friendly language. If you're meeting someone for the first time, say, "Nice to meet you," or "It's a pleasure to meet you." If you're introducing two people, you can say, "This is my friend Alex," or "I'd like you to meet my colleague, Sarah." These short and clear introductions help people feel comfortable. You can practice by saying aloud, "Hi, I'm Mia. Nice to meet you." Or, "John, this is Lisa. She works in marketing." Practicing these simple sentences will help you start conversations confidently. Let's also look at how to apologize properly in different situations. If you make a small mistake, you might say, "Sorry about that," or "My bad." For more serious situations, you can say, "I'm really sorry," or "I apologize for the mistake." If you want to be polite and professional, you can say, "Please accept my apologies." These phrases show respect and responsibility. For example, if you're late to a meeting, you can say, "I'm really sorry for being late. There was a lot of traffic." Practicing these phrases helps you respond gracefully when things go wrong. Sometimes, you'll need to express emotions like happiness, sadness, or anger in everyday life. Saying, "I'm really happy today," or "I feel a bit down," helps people understand how you feel. If you're frustrated, you can say, "I'm a bit annoyed," or "I'm feeling overwhelmed." If someone shares their emotions with you, it's helpful to respond with understanding phrases like, "That must be hard," or "I'm glad to hear that." These emotional phrases are key to real human connection and can make your conversations more meaningful. Try practicing them in front of a mirror, using different tones of voice to reflect the feeling. Let's now focus on how to ask for permission. In English, there are polite ways to do this. Instead of saying, "Can I?" it's more polite to say, "May I?" or "Would it be okay if..." "Would it be okay if I borrow your charger?" or "May I leave a bit early today?" These sound much more respectful and are commonly used in schools, offices, and polite conversations. If someone asks you for permission, your responses could be, "Sure, go ahead," or "I'm afraid that's not possible." For example, if a coworker says, "Would it be okay if I use your computer for a minute?" you might respond, "Sure, just let me save my work first." Practicing these exchanges helps you communicate more smoothly and professionally. In everyday conversations, people often make small talk. Small talk means casual conversation about simple topics, like the weather, sports, or what you did during the weekend. It's not deep or serious, but it's a great way to connect with others. Phrases like, "How's it going?" or "Did you have a good weekend?" are perfect to start a light conversation. You can respond with something like, "Yeah, it was relaxing. I stayed home and watched a movie." Or, "It was busy, but I got a lot done." Practicing small talk helps you feel more comfortable talking to strangers, coworkers, or classmates. Now let's talk about how to express opinions. It's important to share your thoughts in a respectful and clear way. You can say, "I think that," or "In my opinion," to start. For example, "I think learning online is really convenient." Or, "In my opinion, that movie was too long." If you disagree, use phrases like, "I'm not sure I agree," or "That's an interesting point, but I see it differently." These polite expressions allow you to express yourself without offending anyone. You can practice by picking a topic like your favorite food and saying, "In my opinion, pizza is the best meal ever." There are also many useful phrases when you're trying to clarify or make sure you understand someone. For example, if you didn't catch what someone said, you can say, "Sorry, could you repeat that?" Or, "I didn't catch that. What did you say?" If you want to confirm information, you can say, "So you mean we're meeting at 3 p.m., right?" Or, "Just to clarify, we're meeting at the cafe on Main Street?" These phrases help prevent misunderstandings and show that you're actively listening. Practicing these with a partner or aloud will make them feel more natural to you over time. Let's move on to phrases for giving and receiving compliments. Compliments help make others feel good and build relationships. You might say, "You look great today," or "I really like your presentation." If someone gives you a compliment, you can say, "Thank you, that means a lot," or "I appreciate that." Complimenting people's efforts, appearance, or talents is a great way to start conversations or make someone smile. For practice, try saying, "That's a beautiful painting," or "Great job on the report, you explained it clearly." In daily life, you'll also need to talk about your schedule or availability. I can say, "I'm free in the afternoon," or "I have a meeting at 2 p.m. If someone asks you to do something and you're busy, you can say, "I'm tied up right now," or "Can we do it later?" These phrases help you organize plans with others. If someone says, "Are you available tomorrow?" you could respond, "Yes, I'm free after 3." Or, "Sorry, I'm busy all day." Practice these by imagining someone is asking you to meet and you respond with your actual schedule. Let's not forget how to talk about likes and dislikes. These are common in friendly chats. You can say, "I really like watching comedies," or "I'm not a fan of spicy food." If you're excited about something, say, "I absolutely love it," or "It's one of my favorites." To express dislike in a polite way, say, "It's not really my thing," or "I don't enjoy that much." You can practice these by choosing topics like music, food, or hobbies, and expressing how you feel about them using these phrases. Sometimes you might need to make suggestions or give advice. Common phrases include, "Why don't we?" or "How about we?" For example, "Why don't we meet for lunch tomorrow?" or "How about we watch a movie tonight?" If someone asks for advice, you might say, "I think you should take a break," or "If I were you, I'd talk to her about it." These suggestions are soft and friendly. Try practicing by imagining a friend is tired, and you suggest, "Maybe you should rest for a while." You'll also want to learn how to express gratitude in a variety of ways. Saying, "Thank you" is always good, but you can also say, "Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it," or "Much appreciated." When someone thanks you, a polite response is, "You're welcome," or "No problem," or even "Anytime." For example, if someone holds the door open for you, say, "Thanks, I appreciate it." They might say, "You're welcome." Practicing these little exchanges builds confidence and shows politeness. In some situations, you might want to offer something. You can say, "Would you like some coffee?" Or, "Do you want a piece of cake?" If someone offers you something, you can say, "Yes, please," or "No, thank you." Being polite in both offering and responding is very important in English culture. Practice offering things like water or help using these phrases aloud so they become second nature. 4. Example. Imagine offering help by saying, "Would you like me to carry that for you?" Finally, let's practice all these phrases in some imagined conversations. Picture yourself at work. A colleague says, "Do you need help with that file?" You respond, "Thanks. I've got it, but I appreciate the offer." Or you're at a cafe with a friend and they ask, "Want to try the new dessert?" You reply, "Sure. I've heard it's really good." These imagined conversations make the phrases more practical and easier to remember. Another helpful area in everyday English is checking on people or expressing care. You might say, "How are you feeling today?" Or, "Is everything okay?" These phrases show kindness and help build trust with others. If someone is having a hard day, you can say, "I'm here if you want to talk," or, "Let me know if there's anything I can do." When someone expresses concern for you, responses like, "I appreciate you asking," or, "Thanks, I'm doing better now," are common. Practice these by thinking about a friend who had a tough week and imagine checking in on them. Let's also talk about expressing excitement or reacting to good news. Phrases like, "That's awesome," or "I'm so happy for you," are great when someone shares good news. If a friend says, "I got the job," you might say, "That's fantastic. Congratulations." Showing excitement and support helps your relationships and shows you're an active part of the conversation. Try practicing with situations like hearing a friend got engaged, passed an exam, or moved into a new apartment. Say things like, "You must be thrilled," or "That's such great news." Now let's discuss how to respond to bad news. Sometimes you'll hear that someone is sick, lost something, or going through a tough time. It's important to be gentle and supportive. You can say, "I'm really sorry to hear that," or "That must be really hard for you." Other options include, "I'm here for you," or "Please let me know if there's anything I can do." If someone tells you they failed a test, you might respond, "That's disappointing, but I know you'll do better next time." Practice these responses by thinking of times your friends faced difficulties and what you could say to comfort them. Let's take a look at how to politely interrupt or join a thing's conversation. In English, it's important to do this carefully. Phrases like, "Sorry to interrupt, but," or "Can I just say something quickly?" help you join a conversation without being rude. You can also say, "Excuse me, may I add something?" If someone is talking and you want to join, wait for a pause and say, "I just wanted to mention." Practicing this will help you speak up in group discussions or meetings without causing confusion or sounding impolite. Sometimes we also need to end a conversation politely. You might say, "It was great talking to you," or "I should get going now." Other polite ways include, "Let's catch up soon," or "I'll talk to you later." These help you end a conversation naturally. If you're on the phone, you might say, "Thanks for the call. Talk to you soon." Practice ending conversations by imagining different settings, like a party, a meeting, or a phone call. In many situations, you may also want to confirm plans or change them. To confirm, you can say, "So we're still on for tomorrow?" Or, "Just checking. Are we meeting at the same place?" To cancel politely, you might say, "Something's come up and I won't be able to make it," or "Can we reschedule for another day?" If you need to change the time, say, "Can we push it back an hour?" Or, "Is it okay if we meet a little earlier?" These are practical phrases you'll use regularly. Try practicing by setting up pretend plans and changing them using these expressions. Let's not forget how to show understanding and agreement. Phrases like, "I see what you mean," or "That makes sense," are useful when someone is explaining something. To show agreement, you can say, "Exactly," "Absolutely," or "You're right." For example, if someone says, "Learning English takes time," You might say, absolutely, and practice really helps. These small responses show you are paying attention and participating. Practice these with imaginary discussions or even when watching English videos by responding aloud. You can also practice reacting to surprises or unexpected situations. Say you find out something shocking. You could say, really? Or, no way. If someone says, I met a celebrity today, you can respond, wow, that's amazing. Or, if you hear something unfortunate, you might say, oh no, what happened? These expressions help you sound more natural and engaged. Practice reacting to different kinds of news and use expressions that fit the emotion of the situation. It's also important to talk about future plans. You can say, I'm planning to travel next month. Or, I might take a cooking class. To ask about someone else's plans, say, what are you doing this weekend? Or, do you have anything planned? Use phrases like, I hope to, or I'm thinking about, to talk about things you'd like to do. For example, I'm thinking about learning to play guitar. Practice talking about your next vacation, your goals for the year, or your weekend plans using these phrases. Now let's do a little exercise together. Imagine you're on a video call with a friend. You might begin by saying, hey, how have you been? Your friend responds, pretty good, just working a lot lately. You say, same here. Work has been keeping me busy too. Then you ask, do you want to grab coffee this weekend? Your friend replies, sure, Saturday works for me. You say, great, let's meet at the new cafe on 3rd Street. These short, everyday conversations are where these phrases come to life. Keep practicing scenes like this to get more comfortable and fluent in your speaking. Let's say you meet someone new at a networking event. You start with, hi, my name is Mia. Nice to meet you. They smile and say, nice to meet you too. I'm Jordan. You follow with, so what brings you here tonight? And they say, I'm here to meet new people and learn more about marketing. You respond, that's great. I work in education and create videos to help people learn English. From there, the conversation continues naturally. These are the kinds of real-life scenarios where having a few common phrases ready can really help you feel more confident. Another area where English phrases are extremely useful is while giving compliments. It's important to make people feel appreciated. You can say, you did a great job, or I really like your style. If someone shares a creative idea, you can say, that's very creative, or you've got a great imagination. Compliments can also be about effort, like saying, you've worked really hard on this, or your dedication really shows. Practicing compliments helps you build positive relationships. Try complimenting a friend on their cooking, or tell a coworker their presentation was impressive. The more you practice giving compliments, the easier it becomes to say them naturally. Asking for help is another common part of daily conversations. You might say, can you help me with this? Or, would you mind explaining that again? Being polite is important. So also use phrases like, if it's not too much trouble, or I'd really appreciate it. On the other hand, if someone asks you for help, you can respond with, of course, or sure, what do you need? Practicing both sides of this type of exchange is a good way to build confidence. Imagine asking someone for directions or help with using a machine. You say, "Excuse me, could you show me how to use this printer?" And they reply, "Sure, just press this button and wait for the green light." You thank them and they smile. These kinds of short exchanges are part of daily life, and using polite language makes them smoother and more pleasant. Now, let's explore more on expressing preferences and opinions. For example, I prefer coffee over tea. Or, I usually enjoy action movies. You might say, "In my opinion, that's a smart choice." Or, "I think this color looks better." These phrases help express yourself clearly. When responding to someone else's opinion, use phrases like, "I see your point," or "That's an interesting perspective." This kind of respectful language helps in friendly discussions. Practice by expressing your opinions about everyday topics. For example, say, "I like summer more than winter because the days are longer," or "I think this restaurant has the best pasta in town." Ask someone, "What do you think about this book?" and respond with, "I think it's really well written." These sentence structures are easy to practice and very useful in real life. We also often talk about routines and habits in everyday conversations. You can say, "I usually wake up at 7, or "I go for a walk after dinner." Other examples include, "I try to read every night," or "On weekends, I like to relax with friends." When someone asks, "What do you usually do on Sundays?" you can say, "I often spend time with family." These conversations help people connect and learn more about each other. Try practicing by describing your day, using these phrases either out loud or in a journal. For instance, say, "I get up, make coffee, and then check my emails." Add more detail each time to make your responses richer. Making requests is also an important skill. You can say, "Could you please pass the salt?" or "Would you mind helping me with this?" To make your request more polite, you might add, "If you don't mind," or "When you have a moment." Responding to requests can include phrases like, "Sure, I'd be happy to," or "No problem." Politeness goes a long way in everyday conversation, and practicing these types of exchanges helps you feel more fluent and comfortable. A simple exercise is to imagine you're at a PAX restaurant. Say, "Could I see the menu, please?" And when the waiter asks what you'd like, say, "I'll have the chicken sandwich, please." It's a great way to get comfortable with these patterns. Sometimes you need to make suggestions or give advice. You can say, "Maybe you should try it this way," or "I think it would be better if you started earlier." When someone asks for your opinion, phrases like, "If I were you, I'd," or "Have you thought about," are useful. It's also important to listen and respond thoughtfully. For example, if someone says, "I'm thinking about quitting my job," you could reply, "That's a big decision. Have you considered all the options?" Practice giving advice in different situations. For example, if a friend says, "I'm nervous about the exam," you could say, You might feel more confident if you review your notes again. Practicing this kind of exchange prepares you for real conversations. Let's also look at ways to express gratitude. Saying thank you is so important in English. Common phrases include thanks a lot, I really appreciate it, or I appreciate your support during the meeting, are good ways to respond. Practice these exchanges with examples from daily life like, thanks for picking me up, or thanks for waiting. These phrases are short, but very meaningful. Talking about abilities and experiences is another useful part of daily English. You can say, I know how to cook Italian food, or I've been learning English for 2 years. Other phrases include, I'm good at solving problems, or I've worked in customer service. These phrases help you describe what you can do or what you've done in the past. Practice by thinking about your own skills and experience and putting them into sentences like these. It's a great way to prepare for job interviews or social conversations. For example, say, I've taken classes in digital marketing, or I enjoy learning new languages. Lastly, let's imagine a longer conversation. You're at a community center, and someone sits next to you. You say, Hi, is this seat taken? They reply, No, go ahead. You continue. Have you been to this event before? And they say, Yes, I come here every month. You reply, It's my first time. I heard it's really fun. They smile and say, It usually is. The music is always good. You nod and say, That's great. I'm Mia, by the way. They answer, Nice to meet you. I'm Sam. You ask, So what do you do? You can also talk about your interests and hobbies using simple phrases. Say things like, I love painting, I enjoy hiking, or reading is one of my favorite hobbies. When someone shares their hobbies, respond with, That sounds interesting, or I'd like to try that someday. Talking about interests helps form connections and makes conversations more enjoyable. Another example. Do you play any sports? Yes, I play tennis on weekends. That's cool. I've always wanted to learn tennis. Let's do another small exercise. Imagine someone says, What do you usually do after work? You reply, I usually make dinner and watch a movie. Then they ask, Do you cook every day? And you respond, Almost every day. I enjoy trying new recipes. These small back and forths are what make up natural conversations. Practice them in your mind or with a friend, and try to make your answers longer by adding more details. The more you practice, the more natural it will feel to use these phrases in real life. Talking about feelings is another essential part of conversation. Use expressions like, I feel excited, I'm a bit nervous, or I'm so happy today. These phrases help others understand you better and connect with you emotionally. For example, someone might ask, How are you feeling today? And you can say, I feel great. I had a relaxing weekend. If you're feeling down, you can say, I'm feeling a little tired, or it's been a rough day. Responding to others' feelings is also important. If someone says, I'm really stressed, you can reply, I'm sorry to hear that. Is there anything I can do? These kinds of emotional exchanges are part of meaningful communication. Another useful category of phrases is talking about future plans. You can say, I'm going to visit my parents this weekend, or we're planning a trip to the mountains. These phrases are easy to practice and common in friendly conversations. If someone asks, what are your plans for the weekend? You might respond, I'm meeting some friends for dinner, or I plan to stay home and rest. A good exercise is to describe your future plans for the week using this kind of language. Let's practice more examples. Imagine someone says, do you have any plans for the holidays? You reply, yes. I'm going to travel to my hometown. Then they might say, that sounds lovely. How long will you stay? You could answer, about a week. I haven't seen my family in a while. This simple exchange lets you use common future-related phrases and also gives the other person something to connect to emotionally. Practice creating short dialogues like this in your mind, or by writing them down. Another important area is agreeing and disagreeing politely. When you agree with someone, you can say, that's true, or I completely agree. If you want to politely disagree, you can say, I see your point, but I think. Or, that's an interesting view, but I feel differently. These polite expressions help avoid conflict and make conversations smoother. Imagine someone says, I think city life is better than living in the countryside. You can respond, I can see why you'd say that, but I prefer the peace and quiet of the countryside. This kind of respectful disagreement is very helpful in conversations. Practice with another example. A friend says, I think watching movies at home is more fun than going to the theater. You respond, that's a good point, but I enjoy the big screen and the atmosphere of the theater. Practicing both agreeing and disagreeing helps you feel comfortable in discussions. Now let's talk about shopping-related phrases. These are useful whether you're in a market, a mall, or shopping online. You can say, how much is this? Or, do you have this in a different size? If you're looking for something, say, I'm looking for a black jacket. Or, do you sell travel bags? When you're paying, you might ask, can I pay by card? Or say, I'd like to return this item. These phrases are very practical and used often. Practice with this scenario. You walk into a store and say, excuse me, do you have this in medium size? The shop assistant says, let me check. Then they come back and say, yes, here you go. You try it on and say, this fits perfectly. I'll take it. Practicing this kind of interaction helps you feel ready for real-life shopping situations. Repeat it out loud, or write down similar examples. Let's move on to phrases used at restaurants and cafes. You might say, can I see the menu, please? Or, I'll have the pasta, please. Other useful phrases include, what do you recommend? Or, can we get the bill, please? These are essential for dining out and can help you feel more confident in new places. Try practicing ordering a full meal. For example, say, I'd like a glass of water, a chicken sandwich, and a chocolate cake. After the meal, say, that was delicious. Thank you. The more you practice, the easier it becomes to use these phrases naturally. Let's continue practicing with a few more dialogues. Let's imagine you're at a restaurant with a friend. The waiter comes and asks, are you ready to order? You respond, yes. I'll have the grilled chicken and a lemonade, please. Your friend says, I'll have the spaghetti with tomato sauce. Then you both enjoy your meal, and at the end you say, could we have the bill, please? These small interactions are easy to practice and will make you feel much more confident when you travel or eat out. Let's now talk about asking for directions and getting around. If you're in a new place and need help, you might ask, excuse me, could you tell me how to get to the train station? Or you could say, is there a bus stop nearby? Other useful phrases include, how far is it from here? Or, can you show me on the map? These are phrases that travelers use all the time and can be practiced easily with a partner or even in your imagination. Now, imagine this scenario. You're walking down a street in a new city and stop someone to ask, excuse me, where is the nearest bank? They say, it's 2 blocks ahead on the left, next to the pharmacy. You thank them and say, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. This small interaction is packed with useful phrases. Try practicing it aloud several times, changing the location. You can say, where is the museum? Or, where is the nearest grocery store? This builds your vocabulary and helps you speak more naturally. Another common conversation topic is talking about your hobbies and interests. When someone asks, what do you like to do in your free time? You can say, I enjoy reading, or I love hiking in the mountains. You might also say, I'm really into photography, or I like playing the guitar. These kinds of answers help build longer conversations. A great way to practice is to write down a list of your hobbies and create short sentences about each one. For example, I like painting. I find it very relaxing. Or, I play tennis every weekend with my friends. Let's go through a practice dialogue. Someone asks, do you have any hobbies? You say, yes, I like cooking and trying new recipes. They reply, that sounds fun. What's your favorite dish to cook? You respond, I love making homemade pasta. With just a few short phrases, you've created a flowing conversation. Keep practicing these types of exchanges. They are very common in both casual and formal conversations. Talking about your job or studies is another everyday topic. You can say, I work as a teacher, or I'm a student studying computer science. Other useful phrases include, I've been working at the same company for 5 years, or I'm looking for a new job. If someone asks, what do you do? You might respond, I'm an accountant, or I run my own business. To extend the conversation, you can add more details. Say something like, I really enjoy working with numbers, or I like helping clients find solutions. Let's practice a short conversation. A person says, what do you do for a living? And you reply, I'm a nurse at the local hospital. They ask, that's great. Do you like your job? You answer, yes. I love helping people and making a difference. These are simple but powerful phrases that show emotion and keep the conversation going. Practice talking about your job or studies as if you were introducing yourself to someone for the first time. Now, let's cover a few useful phrases for expressing opinions. You can say, in my opinion, or I think that. These phrases are often used when discussing topics with friends, in meetings, or even online. For example, in my opinion, learning English opens many doors, or I think that exercise is important for mental health. When someone gives their opinion, you can respond with, that's interesting, or I hadn't thought of it that way. Practice expressing your opinion about different topics, like movies, books, or health. Let's try another example. Someone says, "I believe that social media is bad for mental health." You respond, "That's a valid point. I think it depends on how people use it." These kinds of conversations help you think in English and give you confidence to speak. Don't worry about making mistakes. The important thing is to keep practicing and using these phrases every day. Finally, let's review some polite phrases for everyday use. Being polite helps build good relationships and shows respect. Use phrases like please, thank you, excuse me, I'm sorry, and may I. These are small words, but they make a big difference. For example, could you please help me? Or, I'm sorry I'm late. When someone helps you, say, thank you so much. If you need someone to repeat something, say, excuse me, could you say that again? These are all very common and should be used often in your conversations. Practice with a short dialogue. You drop your pen and someone picks it up. You say, thank you very much, and they reply, you're welcome. Or you're in a busy street and accidentally bump into someone. You quickly say, I'm so sorry. And they say, that's okay. These everyday interactions are very common, and practicing them helps you sound more fluent and natural in English. Now, let's move into a few more helpful areas for conversational English, especially ones you might use in social settings or casual chats with friends. One very common area of conversation is talking about the weather. This may sound simple, but weather is actually one of the most typical small talk topics in English. You can say things like, it's a beautiful day today, or it's really hot outside, isn't it? When someone says something and you want to agree, you might say, I agree, or that's true. Other phrases include exactly, or you're right about that. To disagree politely, you might say, I see what you mean, but I think, or I'm not sure I agree with that. You could also say, that's an interesting point, but I have a different opinion. These phrases help you share your thoughts while keeping the conversation respectful. Let's practice this exchange. Someone says, I think city life is better than country life. You reply, that's interesting. I actually prefer the countryside because it's quieter. They say, that makes sense. I guess it depends on what you like. This kind of respectful disagreement is a great skill to have in conversation. Let's now talk about one of the most helpful topics in conversation: asking for help and offering help. These are phrases you can use in everyday situations. If you need help, you might say, can you help me, please? Or, could you give me a hand? You might also say, I need some help with this. Or, do you mind helping me? These are polite and clear ways to ask someone for assistance. When offering help, you can say things like, do you need any help? Or, let me help you with that. Another common phrase is, would you like some help? Or even, can I give you a hand with that? Let's practice with a quick example. Imagine your friend is carrying a heavy box. You say, that looks heavy. Want some help? They reply, yes, please. That would be great. Then you say, no problem. I've got it. These kinds of phrases make conversations feel supportive and friendly. They're especially helpful at school, work, or when you're in a new place. You might also hear people say, thanks for your help, or I really appreciate it. When someone helps you, it's always good to show gratitude. Now, let's go over some ways to talk about plans and future activities. This is something we often talk about in English. You might say, I'm going to visit my parents this weekend, or we're planning a trip next month. You can also use phrases like, I'll be busy tomorrow, or we have a meeting scheduled for Monday. These are all useful for sharing what you're doing in the near future. You might also hear, I'm thinking about going to the concert, or we're going to have dinner with friends. Try making your own example. Say something like, this Friday, I'm going out with my friends, or next week, I'll start my new class. These are natural and common ways to describe your schedule or plans. Now, imagine this small dialogue. Your coworker says, any plans for the weekend? You respond, yeah, I'm going to visit some family and maybe go hiking. They reply, that sounds fun. Hope the weather is good. It's a very typical way people talk about their weekends or time off. Now let's shift to asking for opinions and giving your own opinion, which is another essential part of conversational English. When you want to, I know what someone thinks. You might say, what do you think about this? Or, do you agree with that? You can also ask, how do you feel about it? Or, what's your opinion? These questions help keep a conversation going and show that you're interested in what the other person thinks. When giving your own opinion, you can say, I think it's a great idea, or, in my opinion, that could work. Other useful phrases include, I believe that, or, to be honest, I'm not sure. These all sound natural and are great for everyday conversations. Practice with a quick example. Your friend says, do you think we should try the new restaurant? You say, I think it's worth a try. I've heard good things about it. They say, all right, let's do it. This kind of back and forth is very normal in spoken English. Let's now look at a few expressions used when things go wrong or when you need to express concern. These are also important because not every conversation is about happy topics. If something bad happens, you might say, oh no, that's terrible, or I'm really sorry to hear that. You can also say, that must be difficult, or I hope everything will be okay. These expressions help show empathy and support when someone is having a hard time. For example, your friend says, my dog isn't feeling well. You can respond with, I'm so sorry. I hope he feels better soon. Another person might say, I lost my job, and you say, that's tough. Let me know if there's anything I can do. These phrases help keep the conversation caring and supportive. Practice them by thinking of a few situations and how you might respond kindly. Now let's explore some common phrasal verbs, which are very often used in everyday English. These are combinations of verbs and prepositions, and their meaning isn't always easy to guess. For example, give up means to stop trying. Look after means to take care of someone or something. Run into means to meet someone by chance. Turn on means to start a machine or light, and turn off means to stop it. Wake up means to stop sleeping. And get up means to get out of bed. Let's try using some of these in real conversations. Your friend says, I'm going to give up on this puzzle. You say, Don't give up. You're almost there. Or your coworker says, "Can you look after my dog this weekend?" And you say, "Sure, I'd be happy to." Another example, someone says, "I ran into our old classmate yesterday." And you reply, "Really? That's such a surprise." These examples show how phrasal verbs fit into casual English. Try practicing by writing 5 of your own sentences using these phrasal verbs. You can say, "I usually wake up at 6, or "I turned off the television before bed." The more you use them, the easier they become to remember. Let's wrap up this part by going over some filler phrases and conversation softeners. These are useful when you need time to think or want to sound more polite. You might say, "Well," or "Let me think," when you need a second before speaking. To soften your language, you might say, "I guess," or "kind of," or "maybe." These make your conversation sound less direct and more natural. For example, someone asks, "Do you like the movie?" And you say, "Well, it was kind of slow, but the ending was good." This sounds much more natural than simply saying, "It was bad." Or someone says, "Do you want to go out tonight?" And you say, "Maybe, I'm kind of tired." This gives a softer response and keeps the conversation polite. Practice using softeners and fillers in your responses. Try to answer a question in 3 different ways. 1, direct, 1 with a softener, and 1 with a filler. For example, "Yes, I do." Then, "I guess I do." And finally, "Well, yeah, I think so." You'll notice how tone and word choice can really shape the way your answer feels to the listener. Thanks for staying with me through this long and helpful journey into everyday English conversation. I hope you found these phrases and examples useful and that they make your speaking practice feel easier and more natural. Remember, the best way to improve is to keep practicing a little every day. Try using these phrases in your daily conversations. Even if you're just speaking to yourself, with time, your confidence will grow, and speaking English will become second nature. Keep learning, keep practicing, and never stop exploring new ways to express yourself. This is Mia, and I'll see you next time on Daily English Talks. Take care and happy learning.